This is Embodied Success, the podcast, where we explore topics that help to balance your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. With these four elements interacting in harmony, we can experience joy in both our career and personal lives. This is Embodied Success. Hello and welcome to Embodied Success, the podcast. This is your host, Sarah Ann Ferguson, somatic practitioner and quantum living mentor. And today's episode is a very special one because we have our first guest for Embodied Success, and his name is John. He is a breathwork facilitator from Christchurch. So welcome, John. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time coming. So it's really great to finally connect, and can't wait to dive into a recorded all about somatic practices and the power of the breath.
Yeah, totally. I heard an interview with you on a podcast and was very inspired by what got you into breathwork. It's quite a unique story. So would you mind telling our listeners about how you came to be?
Yeah, sure. I guess I can run it right back to leaving high school, or maybe even earlier on than that, because it kind of is one of those stories that began, growing up, and for the first 26 years of my life, maybe, I had chest infections all the time. Was always getting burnt out and sick, and was on antibiotics more time than I wasn't. And so I came out of high school, went and did my trade as a marine cabinet maker. So I was building interiors for high-end boats, and obviously in that space, breathing in a lot of nasties and working big hours and whatnot. Then the recession hit, and I went on to go to university and became a product designer. So then I ended up moving I'm from Auckland. I moved to Wellington to study, then moved to Sydney and became a product designer, and designed everything from driver safety devices to products for the US military, water bottles, yoga mats, kind of you name it. And then went on, was also designing systems for banking and whatnot. But anyway, while I was a product designer, for the first 3 months, I was on a contract basis, and it was kind of week to week as to whether or not I was going to be needed or not. And so I lived in a hostel for 3 months, and rounding out the end of that, I ended up getting pneumonia again for the second time, I think it was. I didn't have to go to hospital this time, but I got to the point where I'm so sick of taking antibiotics. Nothing seems to be working. The asthma medications aren't doing anything. And so I just, at that point, moved into a flat with 3 girls from Byron Bay. And one of them was seeing a woman who was a kinesiologist who I'd never heard of before, but she was seeing her for some issue that she had with her body. And I was like, oh, maybe that can help with what I'm dealing with. So that was my first step into the world of spirituality. And I guess now looking back, it was actually during my Saturn return, that 27-year mark, 28-year mark, where things go really sideways and you've got to try to work out correct the course. So I did that for a year and a half, and that changed everything. Since then, I'm now almost 37, so that was a while back now, 8 years ago probably, and I haven't been to the doctor since. So some big shifts. From there I went on to travel the world and lived in London for a while, and to walk the Camino de Santiago while I was over there, which is that walk across Spain, and then had to come back to New Zealand at the end of 2020, and came into through all the quarantines and whatnot. And I was sitting on the couch with my mum, and I was just scrolling through Instagram, and I came across this heavily tattooed dude on social media. And I wouldn't normally just follow random people, but I was like, oh, he seems like an interesting character, so I'll give him a follow. And then a few weeks later, he was with his partner in quarantine. I was like, I didn't even realize he was a Kiwi. I had no idea what modality they taught or that they even did anything, but he said, I'm going to be doing a workshop in a month's time or so. So I was like, whatever it is, I'm going to sign up for it. Like, this seems just like everything's just aligned so perfectly that I really want to get into this and experience whatever this may be. And that was my first experience with breathwork, with Awaken Breathwork. And I came out of that first experience feeling so empowered, like all of the stuff that was moving through my body that I'd been seeing a therapist for a year already by then, I think. And it had kind of moved a lot, which was really beneficial. But this breathwork technique, just like all the stuff that I wasn't able to shift on my own, like I had a lot of trouble releasing emotions. Struggled to cry. It got to the point where I'd watch, I don't know if you've heard of the movie Lion, but I used to watch that on repeat just to because the end would make me so emotional that I could feel all this emotion in my body, but I couldn't shift it. And so, yeah, through this breathwork practice, I felt these emotions shifting, and whatever was going on inside me was creating these quite monumental shifts. And that was just through 2 breathwork sessions. And since I first got into that journey 8 years ago, I'd always been kind of looking for something that I could offer to other people, because I really felt like I wanted to, bring these sort of benefits to the world. I just could never really find a modality that really felt like it resonated deeply, and I wanted to bring something that I felt confident in relaying to the community that had changed my life, and I could be a poster boy for it and embody it, as opposed to just finding something and jumping on the bandwagon and selling it. So yeah, that was my first experience with breathwork. And then a year later, the Awaken training came out, so I studied with them for 9 months, did their trauma-informed breathwork training, and yeah, the rest is history. It's been I just absolutely love it. It's such a beautiful, powerful modality that really allows you to be in the driver's seat and take control of your healing journey. And I'm a facilitator, so we are there holding that space, but it's the person on the mat breathing through whatever needs to be processed that is doing the work, which I really love about it.
Yeah, that's quite a story, John.
Tried to condense it down a little bit, but that's the gist of it.
Wow. Yeah, so for any listeners that aren't familiar with breathwork, I have a friend who, she said she's seen all these videos of people lying on the floor, being emotional, crying, but she's not sure what it is. So that's breathwork. That's what's happening there. So can you explain how this process works?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to differentiate, we often hear the term breathwork, and people often think of like pranayama, like the yogic breathing, the alternate nostril breathing, or the breath of fire, or those sorts of techniques. And this is quite a modern technique of breathwork. It was actually developed or a similar technique to what I teach was developed by a man called, and I always butcher his name, but it's somewhere along the lines of Slanstev Grof, who was deep. It's close enough. Who was working with LSD, and they were doing trials, and they noticed that people who were doing this certain breathing technique while they were experiencing these psychedelic trips on the LSD were really extending their trips out. So him and his wife decided to dive more into understanding what the breath was actually doing, and that's how they developed holotropic breathwork, which is a similar technique to what I teach. So that's the base of it. It was developed about 30 years ago now, I think.
And what is that? Sorry, how is that breathing? Is it in, out?
This technique is just a conscious connected breath. So it's a forced inhale and a side exhale without any breath holds or gaps in between. And a typical breathwork session, the actual breathing component will last about an hour, and that will allow our body to, well, it activates our sympathetic nervous system, and that will allow our body to process any unresolved emotions that may be stored within the mind-body system. And so that's why your friend will be seeing, people crying or screaming or laughing or whatever it is that needs to be moved or shifted. And it doesn't always. I know those videos are great because they look awesome for social media and people love to see that sort of stuff, and it gains interest. But our session isn't always like that. It can be very introspective. It can be quite quiet, or people might connect with past loved ones. Maybe reconnect with a previous younger version of themselves and work through something and hold that child version of themselves in a space that they otherwise weren't able to be held in the present moment back when they were 7 or 8 years old. There's really no boundaries to what we can work through in a breathwork session, which is what I absolutely love about every session. Is completely different. But yeah, that's the gist of it. It's allowing our body to process those stored emotions. Like, our body doesn't have a frame of reference for time for when these events occur, and that's how we have these trauma responses, right? Like, we react to something because of the way our body was unable to process it however many years or months or decades previously when a similar sort of situation arose. So through the process of breath, we're able to give our body finally that time to process whatever it's held onto for so long.
Well, that reminds me of the first time I did breath work. I was told that I would experience the claw feeling,
T-Rex hands.
Yeah. And then it happened, and it happened very, like, it was very intense, and I felt like my hands would be stuck like that forever, even though I knew it was something that could happen. And since that time, it hasn't happened to that degree. So the first time I did it, it was really extreme, and every single time I do breath work from now on, it's not really. So what was that? Because I had so much emotion that needed to be released?
It really depends on what you're processing at the time, and it's if we think about oh my goodness, what's the word called? It may be a manifestation of what we're holding on to, and if we're really gripping hold of something tightly, or not allowing ourselves to soften into the experience, it can be like not allowing ourselves to go into that place. But I've experienced it, quite a few sessions deeper as well. It really depends on what the mind-body system is wanting to process in that moment. And it can be a case of if that does happen, because it is entirely likely that it will happen. And I've had it so bad that it felt like my wrists were going to snap. My wrists are perfectly fine now, as you can see. So nothing. It will pass. But if it does become too much, you can tap your wrists together, or you can just return to breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And that restorative breathing in through the nose really helps to activate that parasympathetic nervous system and slow everything back down again. So if you are in the middle of a breathwork session and it does become too much, don't think you have to keep pushing your breath and breathing harder and deeper. Just give yourself some time and grace, and just slow things down and really focus on that nasal breathing, because that nasal breathing is what invites us into that parasympathetic state, which is how we want to be breathing daily as well. We want to be breathing as much through the nose as we possibly can. If you're fully committed, you can even tape your mouth closed at night to sleep and really make the most of it. But it's just super important to breathe in through the nose as much as you can in daily life.
Yeah. And how come some breath work doesn't involve the nose breathing at all in through the mouth and out through the mouth?
I think it depends on the facilitator and the way in which they like to operate. Some of them will really want people to have those enormous results, right? Because that feels like the person's getting what they need from the experience. But often if the individual is quite new to the experience or not familiar with working through the emotions that may arise through a breathwork session, then they can end up re-traumatizing the person if they push them too hard, too fast, too soon. So I would always encourage people to come back to breathing through the nose if it does become too overwhelming. And you can have an amazing experience just as deep and profound through the restorative breath in a breathwork session. It's just you can just go a bit deeper and a bit harder if you breathe through the mouth.
So you've just done a trip to Auckland for a breathwork. Was that a breathwork event that people could attend? Like what? Tell me about the Awaken.
Yeah, so that was with my mentors and the people I trained with, Owaken Breathwork, and we had 222 people in that room, all processing emotions, which is a lot of energy to hold.
Yeah.
As a facilitator, but also like equally profound for the individual, because it's almost like whatever is arising in that room is being cleared or shifted or moved for the other individuals in the room. Like it's a collective release, and with such an intense energy, a lot can be moved in a short amount of time, even if people aren't able to go so deep in their own personal journey. But Hella and Lucas from Awaken, they both live in LA. They're a couple, and I had the pleasure of facilitating with them in LA in middle of last year as well. But it's a whole different experience compared to a one-on-one journey when you have that many people in the room. And not saying that one is better than the other, because I think when we're doing a one-on-one session, we're really able to target in on what it is that the person is wanting to let go of, and using visual cues or hands-on body work throughout the session, or really coaching that person to process whatever is arising in that present moment, as opposed to a bigger journey where there's more collective energy, but we're not able to focus on one person so deeply.
Right. Yeah, because I see that you down in Christchurch, you do mornings like group breath work. Is that
So
right?
we've been doing it's called breathwork on the beach, and we do cacao beforehand, and then just a nice daily practice that allows people to tap into whatever may be arising within them, or just ground into the space. Like, it's a beautiful location out on the beach there in Brighton. So a chance to just be present with the sunrise and the sensations of the air on their skin, or the warmth of the sun, or occasionally people will have emotional releases as well, just through that short practice. It really depends on on what's alive in that moment for that person. And we try not to allow it to go too long, to allow for too many of those emotions to arise, because obviously it's not really a container that's safe for that, because we're outside and we're not able to fully hold that person in that space. So it's more just like it's an opportunity for the person to just drop in and connect with themselves. And it's the technique that I do every morning to just tap back into my body and clear all the noise, and I guess align myself properly for the morning. And that practice, I will, on the days that I skip it, are usually the days where something goes sideways. And there was one particular time last year where I didn't do it, and then I went for a bike. I was living in Skara in Sweden, and I rode my bike to the grocery store and came off it and did some pretty nasty damage to my face. And I was like, oh, if I'd actually just taken the time that morning and slowed down and done some breath work, then I wouldn't have been in such a hurry and made such an amateur mistake, which ended up me kissing the pavement. It's but in lesser examples, it creates the beauty of that daily practice is it creates space between the present moment and what is happening to us and our reaction to it. So if we cut off when we're driving, or if our partner or boss or whatever child triggers us, we're not responding to it directly. There's a bit of a buffer zone where we can kind of step back and see the situation for what it is and then act accordingly. Which I think everyone could benefit from.
100%, yeah.
It's not acting so much from our triggers, because it's so
our
easy
nervous system is more toned and resilient to those stressful
totally
situations.
And the more we do these, like the daily breathwork practice, the more we create that space and we gain emotional intelligence, and as well as benefiting our immune system. And there's so many other benefits we can gain from just a short practice like that.
Yeah, and like you say, your health, since no longer doing what you were doing before, working as a tradesman, to this is, or not doing it as much.
I still go back into those spaces occasionally, and it's interesting to be able to observe that and not get caught into the drama or the chaos of it all, because there's it's so easy to get stuck into the negative aspects of those spaces and the energies that can swirl around there, especially when you're working with clients who have certain opinions or ideas of how things should be, or maybe your boss or suppliers or whatever it is. And it's kind of being able to navigate that space without taking everything so personally has been massively beneficial.
Yeah, and you, John, you're a projector, which in quantum human design is an orchestrator. So you're actually not designed to work the grind, the Monday to Friday.
I'm well aware, which is it's been a journey to move out of that place.
Yeah,
especially when it's so much of your identity, right? Because there's like an aspect of your my masculinity that's based around being able to construct things and build beautiful objects that people really appreciate. So, and I guess it was the same with when I gave up coffee. It was like another part of it's all just like, as I'm working through this journey, like realizing there's parts of my ego that are dissolving and coming back to like what I actually am and my essence, as opposed to these narratives that I constructed for the first 25 years of my life or so.
Yeah, well,
but
I didn't.
Well aware of needing to slow down.
Yeah, you also have an open heart center. I didn't dive too deep into your profile, but your heart center is open, completely open. Not only is it undefined, but it's completely opened. So you have an identity and no identity at the same time. You are so connected to source that you are everything at once. So you're not designed to have a fixed identity, and you become conditioned by who you surround yourself with and what you do. So if you're surrounding yourself like you're doing now with your breath work, with beautiful people that see your vision and appreciate your value, then that is what is reflected in how you are. So you're where you're meant to be.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that reflection. That's very interesting, and it explains a lot, right? Like when I was at university, I remember I lived with two guys there who were really driven and wanting to do the best they could with their degrees, and through living with them, I ended up getting, I failed high school, dropped out of year 12, I think, the year before we finished. So sixth form, whatever it is, I know depends on how old you are as to what you call it, NCA level 2. Failed that anyway. And then, surrounding myself with these super driven people, ended up getting first class honors and 100% major project, just because it's, I guess I'd never really seen it in that way, but that's really a really interesting reflection to look back on to, just see how beneficial, how important it is to be surrounded by people who are in alignment with the vision.
Yeah, 100%. So for anyone who wants to work with you, John, how can they find you? Do you do online breath work? How does it work? If someone was
so a breathwork session is around 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on just how things align themselves, and that'll look like maybe an hour to begin with of just connecting. The beautiful thing about breathwork is we don't have to dive deep into your past trauma. You don't have to speak to it. It's all within your body. So as long as it's within, your mind body system, as we go onto the mat to breathe through whatever arises, that's all that matters, which I really love about it. We don't have to keep forcing the conversation. It's more just about creating a really safe environment for that first hour. Then we dive into the breathwork, which is about an hour, and then a 20-minute meditation just to relax the nervous system back down again and ground back in again. And then maybe half an hour, 40 minutes just to decompress and kind of, if you feel like talking about what your experience was like, or maybe something arose. Often when we're in that really space of clarity in a breathwork session, we'll have these epiphanies, I guess you call them, of things like steps we need to take moving forward. And so it can be a great time after the session to really get clear on how we can, keep moving and integrate whatever has arisen in the session. So the session looks like about 2.5 hours. I do both Zoom sessions and in person.
Cool.
I've got clients at the moment in Sydney in the UK, and got one tomorrow in Ireland. But also do in person, and private groups has become something that's been really enjoyable. So some people really want to experience a session with friends or family, and they want to do it from the privacy of their own home. So that's been an amazing journey as well, to go in there and provide that service and already have that sense of safety within that community.
That sounds really
cool. And of course, there's always dynamics within that space as well that they can work through, and it's been really beautiful, that aspect. And then I also do group sessions, which are just getting larger and larger, which is super exciting. And the important thing about the work that we do, in my personal opinion, is that we all have our own unique gifts, and so collaboration is massive component of what I like to do. I like to bring in other embodied facilitators who I feel are in alignment with my vision, and work together and then really get the magic in the room going. It's I love that aspect of it.
I love the sound of that.
But to find me on Instagram, it's my name, John Van Huenen. Or if you can't spell that or work that out, my business name is Navigating Breath. I have a YouTube account which is Navigating Breath, which has got some great meditations and whatnot on it.
Oh, very cool.
A cord cutting meditation which people seem to really enjoy. So if you've got some energies that you'd like to let go of, maybe a unruly co-worker or a past loved one, or I don't know, whoever, something may arise there, but that's definitely a great little meditation to clear those energies, because it's so easy for us to have these strands of energy connected to various people, which can drain our own energy source. But those are probably the best ways to connect with me. Obviously, I've got my website, which is navigatingbreath.com. You can find out more details on there.
Yeah, and I'll drop all your info in the show notes so people can then go there if they can't remember it all.
Yeah,
But
perfect.
yeah, so I always like to give my listeners benefits or actionable steps or something. So could you give us some benefits of doing breath work? If someone was like, why should I do breath work? Just a couple.
I think anxiety is such a massive aspect of the human experience at the moment.
Yeah.
And through just simply like 3 breaths, one in through the nose, out through the mouth, just deep, full breaths, just 3 of those will just allow your nervous system to slow down and allow you to re-regulate and think more clearly. Obviously, you could maybe extend that to 30 seconds of breathing in through the nose, or just we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, but we're also, by closing down our eyes, we're blocking out one sense. So we're bringing our awareness a little bit further into our body. So yeah, just really focusing on that deep full breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, which can really support any anxious thoughts that may arise, or maybe we're feeling flustered, or we're indecisive. Maybe we've got all these things we need to do during the day and we can't really pick which one it is. Just bringing yourself back to stillness, back to the breath, can be a great way to kind of just bring everything back into center and give us a little bit extra clarity.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, John. This has been so special. My first guest, and
yeah, thank you so much. I really for a real honor and a privilege.
All right, that was John Van Huenen, breathwork facilitator from Auckland, living in Christchurch. And I am going to drop all his contact info in the show notes, so you can find him on Instagram, you can find his website, you can find his awesome resources on YouTube. So yeah, I hope you found this episode helpful or inspiring in some way. And as always, if you want to chat about it or anything else, just send me a DM on Instagram, or you can send me an email. I'll drop that in the show notes as well. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.